we always used to start.
Yeah, we should. I don't know where I saw this, but it was a million years ago. But it was fascinating to me. They said if there's like an asteroid or anything from outer space breaching through the atmosphere coming towards the Earth, it heats up as it comes in. And they said it'll get so hot, and they said if you see it go to purple, then you will be cooked within the next 2 to 3 seconds.
Really?
It will heat up very quickly, and just you're going to explode into flame.
Really?
And they said, so when you see it coming and it goes purple, maybe close your eyes for your gratitude, whatever, before the end, and then you're going to meet your people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So but that's science.
Purple rain.
Jimmy sang about it. Or I guess that was actually he talked about the
Prince.
haze. Prince was the rain.
Yeah.
Now, does the rain come ahead of the haze, or does the haze come after the rain?
There was a group called Purple. What was it? Purple Rain.
New Riders of the Purple Sage.
Purple Sage.
Yeah.
No, that's a country group.
Deep
There was
Purple.
actually-
Yeah,
Deep Purple.
Yeah.
That was
Deep
Smoke on the
that's it.
Water.
That's
Yeah.
what I'm talking about.
Smoke on the
Yeah.
Water. Yeah. Uh-huh.
What was that song
That was
about?
8-track.
Yeah.
Remember what that song was about?
Smoke on the Water,
Yeah.
Fire in the Sky.
Yeah.
My Woman from Tokyo.
Yeah, that was a different song.
Like it was.
Yeah.
It was the
On the
same
same
album,
album.
though. Uh-huh. Yeah.
Machine Head?
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I should be on Jeopardy, rock and roll Jeopardy.
Uh-huh. Well, yeah. It's just our childhood is all we're remembering. Yeah.
I don't know anything about modern music.
No,
or like country music. You probably know country music.
Yeah, but why you got to point at me like that? Don't make it a negative.
You know country
Yeah, I know
music.
country.
I have no idea anything about country
I like
music.
country music.
Yeah. I like old country
Have you
music.
seen a girl with a big belt buckle and those tight jeans? It's country music's okay.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's a good way to grow up. Country
Line
girl.
dancing and stuff, right?
I never line danced.
Yeah, man.
You have a cowboy hat, though.
I had a cowboy hat. I was big cat. What do they call it? Big hat, no cattle.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's that was me.
Big balls in Cowtown.
There you go.
All right. Hey, thanks for joining us today on the B Shifter podcast. John Vance, Nick Brunacini, and Terry Garrison here. And it's another round of Ask the Chiefs. We had so many questions stockpiled that we're back to them. We have a couple more today. So you guys ready to dive into this?
We are.
All right. First question. I have a question for the Chiefs. Meditation/mindfulness is a hot topic in the first responder community for mental health. What are your thoughts on its effectiveness? Do you use it personally? And in your opinion, are there benefits for improving incident commander performance? Not just mental health recovery, but resilience. What do you guys think about that?
I'm going to let you start today. I got to think about my mental wellness.
Meditation and mindfulness. I think that's a good thing. When I retired, I got hooked into yoga for whatever reason very quickly. So me and another friend of mine who had retired were discussing, what to do to stay in shape, X, Y, and Z. And so growing up in the fire service and, kind of the traditional roles that we filled, it was more of like whiskey and football would describe kind of our pastime and activities. Whereas really, at this point in my life, I think that's somewhat toxic. It's not good for your brain, either one of those activities. So you should really experience some moderation with that kind of stuff. And what I find is, as far as this question goes, and just kind of your own mental health, that worked better for me was yoga and cannabis really were a better way to move forward. And so I think I'm in better health today than I was in 2009 when I retired. I feel better. So, and a lot of that is just kind of, it's your mental outlook is also a big piece of it. So between that and, working on that and sleeping, getting 8 hours of sleep and drinking plenty of fluids, all the silly bullshit we used to tell people on EMS calls, sleep 8 hours, drink plenty of fluids, is the best advice we could have given anybody.
Right.
I mean, it's really kind of the key to life. And so I'm kind of following my advice now. And to answer his question, yes. And I think it will make you a better IC because it makes you a better person. You're a little more patient. You're a little more... I don't know, mature in the way you deal with pressures and issues that come up during the day.
It's funny because the way you just described that, and we talked about country music, is that is a Hank Williams Jr. song.
Certainly.
All my rowdy friends are settled down and doing more iced tea and cornbread instead of the hard stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's absolutely important, and so for me, it's probably more spiritual. That's just kind of the way I am in my life. But yeah, I think you have to have if you don't have a quiet place to go to, however you get there, and you hear that noise all the time, and I think that's, when I watch TV nowadays, even if I'm not really watching. I watch something that just, I'm not even paying attention. It's more like background noise.
It's
right?
like the fire stations that we worked in. There was always 3 TVs, 4 radios,
Yeah, it's like background noise.
PAs going, and nobody paid any attention to any of it.
I think that's where my ears are ringing today.
Constantly.
Right? All that
Sometimes they would get bored and they just go and blow the sirens for the hell of it.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think it's awesome that somebody would write this question about the meditation, the mindfulness, because it really is important, and we don't think about it. Bruno actually had a lot of comments about that years ago when he started talking about wellness. Right? He wanted that to be included in our wellness program. Where at the time, being a knucklehead that I was, when I heard wellness, first thing I thought of, I'm going to have to do more push-ups and increase my bench or box steps or whatever, but he was talking about total wellness, the physical wellness and the mental wellness. So yeah, in fact, he brought in people over our career. Some of them were successful and they connected with firefighters, and some of them weren't successful and didn't connect with firefighters. I know that in Houston, we had a wonderful man, a doctor, Dr. Buser, who that I was able to connect with while I was there, and he was really concerned about the mindfulness of our employees in Houston, and he did a really good job there. He helped me out as a chief officer, so as a chief officer, in Houston, you spend a lot of time alone and thinking about the decisions you make and the next one you're going to have to make, and kind of having somebody to bounce that off of that isn't critical, that was good for me. But I think that was part of that mental wellness, and I didn't even realize what he was doing at the time.
Yeah, I think that's a big piece of it. When we started our careers, our idea of mindfulness and fitness were different back then.
Right.
It was more built around resilience, and there's nothing that can hurt me, and I can go in and battle all these demons and do all this nonsense. I can bench press 400 pounds.
Yeah.
I can do X, Y, and Z. And that's as you start getting older and accumulate more experiences. I came to find out, I thought, there's not a lot of difference, like in a firefighter's capability of doing their job between being able to bench press 250 pounds and 500 pounds.
Right.
You do about the same thing. So one of them's you're just getting stronger to get stronger. In fact, I saw a thing, they were talking about a quarterback, the Eagles quarterback, and how much he could squat.
Yeah, right.
And it was during a football game, and Troy Aikman's commentated, who was the Cowboys, Hall of Fame quarterback, and he's like, why does he do that? He's thinking, why? He's a quarterback. And then, like 5 plays later, this guy runs through 11 people and scores it. That's why he does it. He's collecting brain trauma right now.
Right.
That's what is happening to him. So I think that's the other thing is when you retire, is you kind of think, okay, I'm retired, and now I want to be as healthy as I can, as long as I can. So that was the other piece of it. As I retired, I thought, well, I'm not in the greatest shape of the world, so maybe I can work on that. So part of the yoga thing is that's got me into fitness again, and so I think that's part of it, is you do a little something physical every day to get your blood going and moving. And I've noticed I feel a lot healthier now because of that. I'm lighter. My joints don't ache as much. And I think that adds a little more gratitude to your life when you go to bed at night. So you sleep a little better. You think, no, life isn't as bullshit as everybody says it is. Well, you turn the TV on and that's what they're screaming at you. You think, no, you people don't live in the same zip code I do, evidently.
My wife and I, for the first time in probably I don't know, as long as I can remember, watched the evening news last night. She got home and it's like, well, let's watch the evening news, NBC or CBS. I don't remember who it was.
Were you surprised that Walter Cronkite was no longer anchoring it?
Yeah,
I love that guy.
Huntley and Brinkley are gone.
This guy?
And we watched it for about the first 10 minutes for the two shootings, the shooting, the run over, the girl in the park that got killed here, and it's like. I looked at it and I said, man, I'm tapping out on the news. I'm going back to Andy Griffith on the Me TV channel. I can't. It was stressful just watching the news. I look over and I said, jeepers, I could have used some yoga right there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You could have watched basketball instead. There's none of that. Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
My favorite thing was Charles Kuralt. I mean, you want to talk about a Zen Sunday morning having coffee. It's we're having the best pie in America. We are in Des Plaines, Illinois. You know, it was like this is life. This is what we should be doing. But to get back to the question about the IC effectiveness, because I used to watch some of the ICs that I really admired, and they had a routine they'd go through, and they were calm, good ICs, but like one of them would always put a dip in. I knew when they'd always smoke, but you know, I tried to emulate. I still do. Like if I'm going to a call, I'll pop in a piece of gum because it just calms me down. I mean, it's just like, I'm enjoying the piece of gum now, and I'm not really thinking about the call until I get there. But what other techniques would you say would really help an incident commander get into the brain space they need to be in, whether it's before a shift or even on the way to that?
Well, you know, one thing that is good for new incident commanders is to call your dispatcher and get your tape. How did I sound, right? Did I sound like I had because Bruno talks about cool command, and we're going to get into that later too with our leadership, maybe, and tie that to that. But you know, listen to how you sound. Do you sound like you have high anxiety? You got to identify the problem, right? Do you get excited at certain points? Because everybody knows when the incident commander sounds excited, then everybody else kind of gets revved up. For me, it was always the two things that I kind of think of every day is, well, I think of three of them, but the two that apply here is patience and being the present, right? Because I'm really an impatient person. I'm always, even when someone's talking to me, it's like, well, I'm getting ready to, okay, I got to walk this way. I got to go do this. I got to think about the next moment. And then being the present where you're at, man, just trying to, without being too cosmic, just trying to enjoy the space that you're in right there. And I think for an incident commander, that's really important too, is to not get too frustrated with the position you're in, but just kind of be present where you're at. So those are kind of I don't know if that answered the question, but that's the two things that I think about that are my Achilles heels. Is I don't get too excited about things just because I'm on my third marriage. I mean, what are they going to I feel like Sam Kinison. Remember him?
I love Sam Kinison.
Yeah, that guy was beautiful. But it's like, what are they going to do? They're going to send me to hell? I'll be a greeter in hell, right? I'm not afraid of anything. Married 29 years, so I'm doing okay. But I really believe that you got to kind of identify your weaknesses. So, and sometimes the weakness in this is just not taking the time to identify that, hey, I need to take time out. So, you know, some people they take long walks, or they ride mountain bikes, or they do something. You got.
That's kind of hard to do before you take command, though.
No, I'm going back to the mindfulness and
the
all
prep.
that. Yeah, just where do you go? So then when you get here, maybe you got a better center.
Yeah, I would notice that, like, especially when I was an officer, because you're looking through the windshield and you're not looking at the motor or the hose beds or anything else, so you can see what's happening. And you'd be responding, and it looked like World War II you were going to, and it could kind of jack you up a little bit, especially working on a ladder, because you had so many options for what you were going to do when you got there.
Bullshit.
And so I find myself starting to get, okay. And I learned is you just kind of close your eyes and you took 3 really subsequently deeper breaths. Oh. And I would do that, and I would look up, and it could be as nasty as it wanted to. And I thought, you know, I didn't light it. I showed up to help. So it put me, what it did is it forced me to take a step back, kind of like you said, and figure out, okay, what are we going to actually do? So, and that was as like a task level supervisor. I wasn't taking command. I was going to work. When I became a BC, I would use the same things as I thought, okay, I got it, blah, blah, blah. And I don't know. There was something about being an incident commander that was just so much better and easier than being a company officer. And I don't know, I just liked it more.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed pulling up to the scene of all this chaos and looking at it and thinking, these 2 or 3 things are going to solve this whole problem, and then calmly telling people to do those 2 or 3 things, and then watching everything get better. So, and that would reinforce itself over and over again. So each subsequent incident, it was you just kept building on the last. And then, and this kind of starts to go into the next question about seniority that Vance hasn't asked yet. But see, it was the execution of doing the work. And then I figured out on the task level, the work is very physical, and we're going to go and we're fighters. That's really what we are. We're going into a hostile place, and we're going to make the hostility go away or behave is what the deal is, if we can. And sometimes we overestimate our ability to tame a force of nature like fire, because it'll burn you to death, right? Kind of like the purple light in the sky. Oh, once it lights up, you're done. You're a speck. So I think that was kind of the thing for me.
Yeah. So, and the other, just you talked about it a little bit, is that action feels good, right? So you're a firefighter. You go there. You're doing something. That actually feels good.
Yeah.
The first couple of times you're an incident commander and you're sitting there, and maybe you know where you want to assign companies and they haven't arrived yet, and you're waiting for that response to come, and you're sitting there. You get a little anxious with that. You do. You got to actually physically calm yourself down. Now, it's nice in our system. We had a partner, and I had a great partner, Sid Norwood, who would calm me down. He just had that kind of calming effect because he was just one of those guys that we're going to be okay, Terry. We're going to be okay. And you think about your plan, your next move, and once then you understand that that's your action. Like you said, you would identify 2 or 3 things that were going to put this fire out. So now you have your action ready to go. Your action may not be, climbing the ladder, but your action is going to assign these companies to help solve this problem. Brunacini used to say something kind of interesting. He said, if the fire makes you crazy, face the other direction. Remember when he used to say that?
Well, and it's too bad it does, because that's kind of why they called us.
Right?
Yeah.
But he's like, don't let the fire make you crazy, right? What are you thinking, John?
Well, I think there's 2 levels of stuff. So I was thinking about, on the way when that call comes through, and I agree with that. And a lot of it I've heard you guys talk about over the years. So I think about what Nick says, I didn't start this. I'm just here to fix it. And they're counting on me to be calm and stuff. And generally I am. The only time I really feel jacked up as an IC is when it's stuff I don't do on a normal basis. So like a technical rescue, and we've got to get 4 construction workers out of a ditch that are trying to dig their buddy out. And those are the things that kind of ramp me up. A structure fire, I like going to structure fires. It's one of the, my wife always says, what's a good fire? Because we're always talking about, well, that was a good fire. It's like, is there a good fire? No, there really isn't. But, for us, there is. When it goes well and everybody's safe and you can stop property loss. But I think that the prep for that, the going into it, there's just a couple of things I do. Number one, you got to enjoy life and be mindful about that and be grateful for what you have. I do sensory deprivation, so I don't know if you've ever been to one of the and I can feel my body get tense a lot of times. And if I get to that point, it's about $100 for an hour, and you go into a tank and you float, and all the lights are off, and it's an hour of meditation, and I end up falling asleep. You're meditating so deeply, and when you really do it and can get everything off your mind, you will go to sleep. And I wake up.
Are you floating in like water?
Salt water, yeah.
Okay.
Floating salt water.
How deep is it?
It's probably about a foot or less. Yeah. You don't touch anything. You don't touch bottom.
So it just suspends you the whole time?
Yeah. And there's a thing you put around your neck so your ears don't go underwater. But
you just relax.
You're lying there.
You go away.
You're back in utero. I mean, I think that's what it is.
Do you ever poop in the amniotic fluid there?
No.
You never
There's
have
been no
any
meconium. No plugs.
No, like emissions of any kind?
No, never,
waking up
never.
Hey,
wow.
None that I'll talk
He didn't
about.
ask you if you pooped when you did yoga. That's not fair.
probably broke wind.
Man, yoga, you fart like a son of a bitch because you are stretching some, Yeah.
I've done yoga too, and I was here at a very nice health club in Scottsdale, and it's a chain, and they're Lifetime.
Right.
They're by me, and they're here. And I walked in, and usually I'm with like the moms and some other dads, and it was the beautiful people of Arizona.
Oh wow!
I turned around and walked out because they didn't want me in there.
Yeah.
But I think that having those kind of things that you do that just chill you out, and that I'm not much into like getting massages or doing spa type of things, but that's a nice alone time to really get you centered. And I totally recommend it. If you have a chance to do sensory deprivation or a float tank or a float spot,
I do something different. I do adoration, right? So being a Catholic, I go every Wednesday morning at 4:00 and I sit in adoration for an hour, and that's kind of the same thing where you just sit there quietly for about an hour and think about things. But I was thinking back to this IC. So one of the things that, because Nick hit it, we got to help this guy out, is a pencil and a piece of your worksheet or a piece of paper, and writing some things down when you're waiting, when you feel yourself get anxious. And because what makes you anxious is that, and it does it with me in meetings also, is somebody's talking, and this is part of what I need to do, is if I want to jump in and say what I got to say, and instead I just write it down. I go, okay, I'm not going to forget that now. I wrote down, did you poop, or whatever that thought was going to be. And that's a good point. That might be something that would help a young IC, is to just have something where you can make sure, because what's making an IC agitated, or the fire itself, but really the fact that they want to do a really good job and they don't want to miss something. They obviously don't want people to get hurt, and that's part of it. If somebody does get hurt, certainly don't want it to be their fault. So just kind of some skills that make you a better IC. So the better you become, the more comfortable you're going to feel in that position. I don't know, Nick.
There were certain triggers that would kind of set me on edge as an IC, and most of it had to do with substandard task level performance. So there are a few times you would like, what the hell are they doing? So there's nothing you can really do about that as it's going on, other than just kind of control yourself, I guess. And then whatever it is that's not going the way it should is figuring out how to correct that. So, but as an IC, that's not your job, is to tell somebody how to execute a task level evolution. Right. I mean, that we don't use the tactical channel for that. So really, I think other than that, most of it though was like when you got there, like if the fire's starting to jack you up because it's just burning and destroying stuff, that didn't get me going so much. Is because during that thing, it's really, that's like, don't look at it if it makes you crazy. You got to figure out, okay, I need to cut it off here, and then do this and that, and here's kind of the timing and the sequence of how that looks like. So I didn't get antsy because I'm sitting there instant action planning, thinking, okay, we got to do this, this, and this. And so then as companies start staging and you start assigning them, then it almost turned into a game, to be honest with you. I enjoyed that part of it. It was almost, and you're not saying it's a chess game, but it's like, nah, I kind of looked at it that way, and it went a lot better when I could disassociate my ego and self and just stand back and clinically say, this, and this has to happen here. So that's what I spent a lot of my time doing in the front end of it. And then once our company started staging, the other good piece of this for us at least, and you said it, we had a partner, but we didn't get there first, is we got there second, third, fourth, fifth. So you didn't have a lot of time to obsess because you were processing the information ahead of time. So if you're responding to the thing as a BC, and you're waiting for engine 13 to clear alarm because they should be on the scene right now. So I'm starting to do the delivery thing. Okay, you should be there, and your initial report, you're going to tell us what the hell's burning. And so boom, boom, boom. Right. And then they start painting a picture, and you're like, oh, this is, I'm probably not going to even take command when I get there. They got a small house with a room and contents fire
need to
going on. Or a car in the driveway, that's why it looks as big as it does, whatever that is. So once you get there and you think, okay, this is what we got. So there's a lot of stuff like before you actually show up to the scene that you're processing is the IC. So it doesn't give you a lot of time to wring your hands and clutch your pearls and think about, oh my God, look at what this horrible fire is doing to such an innocent community. And you think, yeah, okay, this is... mm-hmm.
You know, the other thing you made me think of, that because people will make you crazy. So if you're making yourself crazy, it may have something to do with confidence level and competence level, and you can always train and be better and listen to more after action reports, go on NIOS, learn more about your role as an incident commander. And then the other things that make you crazy is other people, right? So the ones on the incident ground, like you said, that aren't, or on the fire ground that aren't doing what you expect them to do, and you don't have a lot of control over that, but you got to be a little patient. Maybe you got to send a company in or nudge them verbally or whatever.
Division boss.
But the third one that will make you crazy, and if you use this, the blue card system, it's the people around you. You knew where I was going. It's the people that, if you don't make that command post, your suburban or wherever you're locked in there, if you don't control that could get you wound up really fast. Somebody putting their head in the window, some other chief officer asking a silly ass question, not having the support that you need, like we had a partner, that'll jack you up. So you can control that, and you really need to, and say, hey, right now, no. I'm doing this. And we were guilty of that too. I mean, there was times in our career we get in the back seat and the command post, but I see Nick and it's like, hey, how's it going, man? And the guy would turn around and give us that look. It's like, oh, sorry.
Yeah, I figured out after about 3 or 4 times I ain't getting in the back of the car anymore. That ain't what I'm doing. I'm not doing it. So and that was
because why are you back there? You can hear everything.
Okay, you're the shift commander. You have to be a senior advisor. Yeah, well, I don't have to be in the back seat of the goddamn command post. I can be outside at the driver's door, and if there's something they need to know, I knock on the window, tell them, hey, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
It's pretty simple. I think really at the core, though, what said for me, mindfulness was competence. So if you show up and you do what's expected of you, then that is really kind of what controls your anxiety more than anything else. This is what I was trained to do. I showed up and I had this, and I applied those skills to this, and it went well. Whether it's a task level thing or you're a strategic IC, you get assigned as a tactical level boss. So again, I'm going back to the work. We all are part of this organization because we're hired here and get paid to do this work.
Yeah.
So that becomes the connecting force. Well, the better you are at that work and the more you understand it and our capabilities and limitations, that kind of settles your ass down. I mean, people in my fire department, you're going through the IC thing. And they say, okay, the one thing socially that they're going to go crazy is when you change the strategy from offensive to defensive, because that's like the failure that we couldn't put it out this way, and they're then gnashing of teeth, and we're not worthy. In actual application, every time I got there as the IC and changed the strategy, I had 8 people come up and thank me for that,
right?
Because they wouldn't do it themselves because it was for whatever reason. And so you learn very quickly, oh, that's all a bunch of bullshit too that we've all believed. So maybe if we just do the actual capabilities that we have and stick with that and be really good at it, then that becomes kind of the way forward.
And as far as the mindfulness of that, because everybody not everybody, but most of us feel after we run an incident afterwards, like, how'd I do? And that could start eating at you, go back to the station or whatever. But have those after action reviews. Review the incident right there. And you said it on our last podcast, I think. But we used to do a after action for just a command team. Well, there's a good way to do that too. Just get the company officers and the IC and say, okay, guys, what can I do better? That'll help you feel better about the next one, right? And if somebody says, hey, I didn't really like what you didn't give us enough time. You gave us an assignment, and then you started asking us how we hadn't even got off the truck yet, so you need to do better. Whatever it is, you could learn from that, right? Build competence, and then you...
Yeah.
I think that you both brought up great points, and I hopefully we helped Dave out a lot. Dave will be getting an OGIC T-shirt from B Shifter. So thanks for that question, Dave.
We should wear one in here with that back.
Yeah. Oh, I've got one on. Actually.
Oh, you got one on?
Yeah. You should have seen it in color, baby.
Yep.
Looks good on you.
Yeah. You get a free bowl of soup with that?
Is that color with a U?
Exactly. We are all wearing B Shifter clothing. We're a fashion house.
Yeah.
It's
all about the merch.
Yeah, we're a fashion house and a college.
Yeah.
We're flying our colors.
A bunch of B Shifters. Oh, this is so much fun.
All right, next question. Advice on how to manage those that may have more experience than yourself. I'm a fairly new officer, and sometimes my crew is composed of members who have significantly more experience than myself. How do I maintain my own personal leadership to the crew while simultaneously helping them grow? I'm aware my ego has something to do with this, but I still want to ask to see if there was any input/advice that you have for me. Thanks. That is GD is his initials.
GD. Well,
Yep.
Congratulations on, promoting through the system. Maybe you're younger. Maybe you were, I don't know, you applied for the positions and you got the positions, right?
Mm-hmm.
But, it's kind of interesting because a small part of the job that whether you're a fire captain or a chief officer, a small part of what you do is really autocratic, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the hazard zone that's autocratic, but everything else, I mean, you have time to get input from people and to provide feedback and get people's opinions, and you don't want somebody who's got more seniority to be a bully at you. You shouldn't allow that, but it's nice to get input from people as a leader, right? So I think that probably throughout the entire fire service, there's people out there that are younger that are supervising people older, right? People with more experience. That's just kind of the way the job works. So some of the things you could do is just, first of all, if you have an ego and you can feel that ego, don't let that ego go, because or don't let it play out, I should say. You should let it go, but not let it play out, because once you throw down that "I'm the boss" card, you're screwed, right? Mike, you're smiling at that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, once you go there, I'm the captain, it doesn't matter how old I am, I'm the supervisor, I'm your BC. Oh my God, if you got to state your title wherever you are in the organization, I'm the fire chief, buddy. Yeah, I think we all know that. It says it on your shirt, asshole.
I used to have a chief that said, around here we follow the golden rule. He with the gold rules.
I love it.
And, and he used to call his collar brass, pick and choose. I don't have to do the same work you idiots have to do. He was one of those guys.
Sounds wonderful.
Yeah, it's like, I'm more of the boss that I am now because of all the bad bosses I've ever had.
Yeah, exactly.
And I've been a supervisor since I was 19 years old in one way or another.
Yeah.
So I've been used to having people who are older than me, but you guys had probably older than you, like war veterans and people who had pretty entrenched beliefs and ways of doing business. So how did you deal with that during your career?
I'm the chief.
I work for old people. But I was the subordinate to them, so that was interesting. And most of them were, I think the key to that whole question is the work. We're all there to do the work. So if you're the supervisor of that crew, it's your job to make sure the work gets done. In fact, you're a working boss, so you're doing that work with them. Yeah. You're a member of the working crew. So in that way, you kind of lead by example.
Yeah,
I think. So the older members see that, he's just one of us, and this is what we're all here doing, and this is what he's making us do, our job. So, and it's my experience that we have where I was, the people that I was hanging out with had respect for those bosses.
Yeah.
That would show up and say, this is what our job is, this is what we're doing. And not the ones that showed up and said, oh, no, this is our job, and I want the truck cleaned in this fashion as follows, because this is the way we do it on C group. Well, no, the truck will be just as clean on B group, and we'll clean it as we clean it. So that was first and foremost. In fact, it was to the point that if you had like a new officer who just wanted to be everybody's friend, we really didn't have much time or use for those people. It would act as such. So, and in the fire service, at least this is the way it was with us, is people would end up with who they wanted to work with. Nobody worked at stations they didn't want to be at.
It took a while after
our assignment procedures were all based on seniority. There was nothing else. If you had the senior letter for a spot, you got the spot if you had all the qualifications required of that spot. So you would assemble crews that and some of them had worked together for 20 years. I mean, a very long time. So you were coming into that kind of a deal. So that could be a challenge, especially if you were going into those places as an acting officer. So their captain's off one day and you fill in. So
I'm just thinking maturity, right? So it doesn't really have to do with length on the job or time on the job or your age or anything, but the maturity piece. So I remember, you made me think about it, is that I was a acting captain, and I roved into a station where they had a pretty senior captain, and there's a couple guys in the station. If I told you their names, you would know who they are. And they're a couple of caustic guys. And so I come in, and I'm the acting captain, and we're not even promoted yet. And they're like, "Oh, Garrison, all right, here we go." There was a female there and these two caustic guys, and they go, "Okay, first thing is we're going to watch these movies tonight." I said, "No, we're not going to watch those movies." No, the other captain, he lets us watch these movies. Well, these movies, nobody was dressed in these movies. And it's like, "No, we're not going to watch those." Say, "Come on, Garrison." And I said, "No, we're not going to watch those movies. Watch them next shift. If he comes back next shift, you guys watch him next shift." So we didn't watch the movie. So I got to hurt their feelings. And then we go on a call, and they keep screwing with each other. And I'm watching. It's like, I didn't say anything. I'm just watching them. They just keep poking at each other and poking at each other. So we get a call. It was down Station 6. So we get a call, 3 in the morning. It was the third call we had. And on the last call, the guy got up a little bit slower than the other guy. Well, this time on his way by, he punched him to wake him up. So we go on this call, and I feel the tension. It's like, okay, what's going on there? EMS call down there. It was actually a worthwhile call. We go back to the station, and I could feel the tension, and I thought, should I do anything? No, I'm not going to do anything. So I go to my room, and I hear, whoo, 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 and it's a fight. I mean, you know what a fight sounds like when it's in the next room. And I go out, and these guys are going at each other. And I lost it. I said, "Neither one of yours touch anybody." And they look at me, and they both stop. And they had been building up to this fist fight. And I said, "You guys don't talk to each other the rest of the shift. Shut the hell up. Don't talk to me. Don't do anything." Well, in the morning when I left, both those guys individually came out to me and said, "Hey, we're really sorry we put you in that position. We shouldn't have done that." And they were both very sincerely apologetic about it. And I thought, I should have been more consistent with. So I started off at the shift. I showed maturity and said, "We're not going to do this." But I really kind of got a sense something was happening. I didn't tell them, "Hey, take it easy, guys," or say anything to them. So I think, for the maturity factor, and then be consistent. Have you ever had supervisors? And this is one of the problems I see kind of with younger supervisors. They're still trying to figure out their personality traits as a leader. So they come in and they're almost like trying different things in a real inconsistent kind of way. And one day they're the buddies, and the next day they're the boss, and then they're the buddy. And you got to pick what you're going to be, and you got to be consistent as a supervisor. And now you're smiling at that, but consistency is the key, right?
And the question is, you're younger, everybody's older.
Yeah.
When I promoted a company officer, I was young. I was like 27, 28 years old. I had 7-8 years on the fire department. I'm a captain. Because that's when you started the academy, you wanted to graduate as a captain, right? I wanted to be a captain paramedic. That's the swashbuckler. So anyway, we promote. We're going through and then the fire department puts you through all these like leadership and captain's classes. This is what we expect of you, blah, blah, blah. And I remember we're going through the personnel piece of it, and the assistant chief of personnel came in and said, all right, the way this fire department's organized, the way we hire people, it said, you're going to be brand new captains. And they say there's about a 95% chance you'll never have to write paper on anybody during your whole career because of how smooth and bloop, bloop, bloop. That was the biggest load of bullshit I was ever told in any part of my career. Because we started roving as acting captains, and the first place I went is the captain left, and you would know this individual, because the recruit firefighter he had was another fireman's son, and this recruit fireman should not have been a fireman, ever. They should not have got through the academy, not suited for this job in any way whatsoever. Well, the captain at that truck couldn't be put in the position where he would have to do any discipline with his buddy's son. So he just takes a month off and gives the problem. So I have a different view of this captain than now that I have to fill in and do his job because he refuses to do it.
Weird.
So then after that happens is then we ended up at a station that had just had some racial personnel issues going on that were kind of the big deal at the time. Well, both of those captains got booted from the station for it, and they put in the two newest we weren't even captains yet. They hadn't made us, and they said, you guys were like, what the hell's going on? I should have gone to law school. This is not what you said it was going to be. So I very quickly learned I don't really care how old you are or what you think or what your last name is. None of that matters. What happens is, like, when we get a call and we go off and we do what we're supposed to, if you'll do that, then we're great. That's all that matters now to me. Is the rest I don't care what color you are, what kind of genitals none of that matters. Will you just do your job, please? If you'll do that, we're good.
It goes back to the work, you said it, right? Position and function, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that young supervisor has a position to lead that crew. That's his position. The function is to lead. He needs to do that in a way that, first of all, don't do anything where you're causing the problems because you're being a young smartass, and I don't think this person's doing that. But you got to acknowledge you're younger, but you still got to do your job, right? So do it in a respectful kind of way. Have you ever, you know what it's like when somebody disrespects you. You don't give a shit what their age is. When somebody disrespects you, it's irritating. Whoa, look at that.
Be careful there, Vance.
We've got so much on this table.
There's too much.
It's crazy.
We'll be fine. We're going to fix this.
Oh, you didn't know, but before we got here, I kind of moved some of those around.
Oh, thanks. It sounds really good.
You know, the other thing that this question asks is, okay, this doesn't ever stop.
Yeah.
So he's a brand new captain. He's younger than his crew. I was a shift commander, and I had been one for a while. So, I mean, there was no secret who the shift commander on B shift was. I'm the IC on a fire. I got to the fire. I should have been the IC. I didn't take command. I didn't transfer command because the fire was out. And I tell a story all the time during these classes, and it has to do with the work. So this particular captain was the most senior member, maybe the most senior member of the fire department. And he wasn't dressed appropriately, and we had just had a class at the CTC on that, and so I went up and asked him about that. And he was very offended, like, what are you talking about? You know, your dad said, teach the crew how to do the job and stay the hell out of their way. I said, oh, that's not what he meant. And if that's what you want to do, is then maybe you need to not get on the fire truck anymore. Yeah. And just stay in the station. Would that be okay with you? Is the second paramedic on the truck? How about if the other guys, if the engineer figures, I just don't want to do this today? So he's like, hey, man, you're being an asshole. No. You're the son of a bitch that didn't do his job. So in the last training session, we talked about this, and you said this is what it looks like, and then you show up to the scene, and that ain't what you're doing. I said, so you just lied to all of us, right? Yeah. And man, you call me a liar? Now you're going to, punch me tonight. That's going to go, come on, moron. So we kind of had a little squabble over that for a month or two. Right. And then it got to the point, and another fire, and I pull up, and we're setting the command van up, and his company gets there, and he comes out, and he does a twirl with all of his turnouts on, and then throws me double birdies. And I went over and I hugged him. I said, "Thank you. You're dressed appropriately. That's all we wanted." And then, see, the ego part is after the thing was over, I went and purchased ice cream, and then took it to the station and said, "No, this is." If I'll come up and tell you to do your job and remind you, then later on, if you actually do what I ask, then I should give some positive reinforcement that way. And now, Vance, if I would have known, I would have emptied all the shit out of the back of my response vehicle and put an isolation tank in it. And we would have floated together, and we would have come to some kind of mental mind lock on what our role in the community was.
I think that's a good idea. I think mobile deprivation tanks.
I do too.
Every fire, they're putting saunas in. You know, they haven't been proven to work yet.
Yeah.
So
I think in 10 years we'll have like the medication you smoke before you get into the tank. It'll just be a whole thing.
Somebody's going to drop a toaster in on somebody else. So it's not going to.
Well, when you got people floating in water, you're going to have a curling iron in floating around.
Right?
Yeah,
it's not good. Go ahead, but what this person, you said it. I mean, this person, it's about. I just think you got to be respectful to everybody, whatever position you're in.
Yeah,
right?
be nice. I mean, that's pretty
nice
simple.
to people, and then most people want to be nice back to you. But if you come in and I'm the new guy, and it doesn't matter what age I am, you're going to do what I say, which this person is not saying that. But there are people that do that. I've seen people promote to position. I'm the guy now. I got this position.
Yeah, they think they're more important than you are. All of a sudden,
like
you think,
when
no.
you pin that on, all of a sudden, all the knowledge on the planet just went through that badge and entered into your body, and now you're the smartest person in the room. So we had a fire chief that would tell you, it's written on the wall out there. If you think you're the smartest person in the room, go to another room.
Yeah.
Right? And that's so it's most people will treat, or the way they treat you is a reflection on how you treat them, right?
Right.
It really is.
Yeah, it's that simple. I mean, and really, it's all the stuff that your parents taught you growing up. Is you can't hit other people, you don't take stuff that's not yours, you have to play nice. Those are the basic ethical rules that we all lived by.
Yeah.
And we've all worked with people that didn't get that. And it seems like if you didn't get it when you were young, you just ain't getting it.
You know what I was thinking is that in our organization growing up, because I was, like you talked about, there were some war guys that I got hired in, 77, and there was a lot of old guys left over. And most of the ones that didn't want to promote to captain, the ones that wanted to stay engineers and firefighters and they had some age, loved being in that position. And they took on the responsibility is to help the young guys do better. It was really kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Like I just left Glendale. There's a guy Green over there who is an engineer forever, and really brilliant guy. Just never wanted to promote to captain. But every captain that worked for him, he made that captain successful. And a lot of the older people, I guess I can call them older people because I am one, but they want to do that. They want to help you be successful. I remember. Like I said, I promoted the captain with, I think I had 12 or 13 years on. So that was a little bit of time.
Mm-hmm.
And I was hired when I was 19, but I was still kind of young. But it seemed like the people that had some age and wisdom were there to help me. Hey, man, I'm going to help you out. And it's like, wow, thank you very much.
And they were dressed up in different ways, man. You wouldn't expect some of them, like Ed Sobocinski.
Yeah.
I was a roving captain, and he was on Engine 4. And I remember going there and being his boss, and just on calls, I had worked with him as a firefighter, so we knew each other, and it was different. So he acted a certain way when we were working together. It was more like equals. But then when I became the officer, he was almost would explain what he was doing on calls in a way, and that you thought, I never thought of that before, but that's pretty smart. And we were going to a fire, and it was summertime, so it's like 105 out. And that son of a bitch throws on a sweatshirt, and then he puts on his turnout coat. And I asked him, what the hell are you doing? He says, hey, man, you ever get hot? I said, yeah, all the time. I burn the shit out of my shoulders, everywhere my jacket. He says, put on a sweatshirt first. He says, I quit getting burned.
He
when
always
I did
wore
that.
sweatshirts.
And I said, now, I just wasn't efficient enough to carry a goddamn sweatshirt. I thought I'll get burned, I guess. I ain't putting the sweatshirt on. But just things like that, little practical things that you didn't think of. And you thought, geez, and you're thinking, Sobo came up with this? I mean, this guy had a van with every tool known to man in it, and then every weapon and every round. His old retired Marine, he was a lunatic. But he was a nice man. I mean, and so if you were nice to him, he'd be nice to you. It was it was perfect. I liked working with Sobo. And then, like you said, the crew they'd start, hey, man, leave him the hell alone. Well, who are you? It's, I'm Sobo's buddy today. Yeah. No more. Put your stuff back in your pocket. We'll be fine.
Yeah, so I had a driver that passed away, a Vietnam era veteran, Sid Norwood. We all love Sydney. And he was older than me by, 15 years, and went to Vietnam and had all this. And he was my driver for probably 10 years and treated me like I was his dad, his boss on duty. And I'd see him off duty. We'd every once in a while have dinner, have a beer, and the roles completely changed. Sydney, what do you think? But when we were on duty, he gave me all the respect, and it's incredible how those guys are able to do that.
It was a unique generation of people that were ahead of us.
Love that guy.
Yeah.
One thing I would say to GD too is you're going to go from feeling like you have all these people that are older than you, and in a blink of an eye, they're all going to be younger than you. And where that bridge happens, I don't know, but it happened to me in the last 5-10 years, where I was always the young supervisor, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait a minute, I am the oldest guy here now, pretty much, and relish being the young guy.
I'm older than all my doctors and dentists. You walk in now and you see a doctor or dentist, the eye person, whoever, and it's like, gee, you could be my kid, but you respect the position they're in, and they're, so you're right.
I mean, that's what happens when you accumulate age. You become the oldest person in the room sometimes. But like you said, Vance, it's a weird thing to get used to.
Yeah.
I walk down in there in the classroom, and sometimes I'll think, I don't know if any of you are even 50 years old yet. Yeah. I mean, Jesus Christ, where did you come from? It sneaks up on you.
Happens in a blink of an eye.
Yeah. Well, the alternative sucks.
Yeah. Should we do a timeless tactical truth before we go?
Why not?
Yes, timeless tactical truth. It's the cards from Alan Brunacini, available at the B-Shifter store. And we pulled one out at random. This is the Jack of Clubs. The Jack of I think of the Love Boat episode where they were trying to cheat at a card game, and Gopher was on the PA saying, "Oh, try the club sandwich today. It's going to jack you up."
Anyway. So you just aged yourself there.
The Love Boat.
Have you read the latest? Well, it's the recent, and it's been happening last year or two with the chess, the high level chess master tournaments. They said that's over. They said there's not going to be any more Gary Kasparovs or any of these people.
Why?
Because now they have figured out how to cheat. See, computers have become so good with AI that they can beat any chess player in the world. Yeah. So what happens is they have these tournaments, and these people put these vibrating sensors up in their rectum. And I'm not bullshitting. This happens, man. They said it's over. Grandmaster chess is done, unless they do a proctologist exam on you beforehand. Oh. And then what they do is they communicate to them with what move to make through that device. And, 3 of this and 2 of this means move this piece wherever. So they get that worked out. And then whoever it was is just smoking them. One of the boom, boom, boom. So they got Google glasses or something
the whole time.
Oh, it is.
Which camera do you get on? I want to look at it and go, what the hell?
Now, sometimes the tactical truth can be the most fun part of the podcast.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So we've talked about purple lights burning us to death, and cheating as grandmasters in chess, and isolation dip tanks.
Yeah,
we're onto something here, I think.
All right, the tactical truth, command post location. This is
Man, we shift gears. We shift gears so fast here on the B shifter.
command post location. Good view of scene, remote from action, doesn't interfere with apparatus movement, view of two most critical sides of the situation. And we were just talking about the command post and us screwing it up as humans,
perfect.
but command post location for us, I mean, this is a good truth because you need to find that. What happens when you can't get that at the scene?
Well, that's like the Easter egg to get that spot, and once you get it, is very quickly a ladder truck will park right in front of your command post.
I've told this story before, but so I'm a new IC. I've got Cliff Ennis driving for me, a very experienced driver, and we called them Fitz back then, or AIDS. I don't remember.
AIDS, they were AIDS.
And
yeah.
so we pull up to this scene, and we got a rip-roaring commercial big box fire. And I look up, and I get my senses, and I go down, and I'm writing, and I'm like this first. I'm getting a little anxious. I write a couple things. I'm talking on the radio. I look up again, and he had driven me to another corner. I look up, it's like, what the hell happened? I felt like
Time machine. He time machined you.
I was so caught up with this as a brand new IC, Battalion 3, that I didn't even feel the vehicle moving, and he moved me over to another position. But, you know, like you said, that's the Easter egg. If you can get that spot and do the best you can. If you can't get that spot, you're still going to have to do the best you can, right?
Well, I advise what I got in the habit of doing. If I was IC number 2, I would try to loop the building with my car as part of my response, so I could get the most views. Because I figured once we park, is our views going away?
That's true.
One day we pulled up, and same deal. We pull up, and it's rocking and rolling, and it's cooking, just going to town. And so you're like, it's like marginal. It's okay, we're going to attack, we're going to do this, but you know, if this ain't done in a minute and a half, we got to make a change. And in the middle of it, a Glendale ladder truck pulls up. Well, Glendale painted their apparatus yellow. My fit partner is Lynn, and he gets out of the thing and he screams, "School bus!" And about that time, all of a sudden, the outriggers go down. And this Bronto, I mean, it's like the buildings are like, the hell with the building. Let's watch them put the Bronto up again. You know, it'll go up and over, and we could do 2,000 gallons a minute off the tip. So it was. Yeah, we left it where it was, and we ended up changing the strategy and using the Bronto nets.
Hey,
it worked.
Stay out of the smoke.
Yeah.
Right? That was, think about Southwest Supermarket, right? We couldn't see the building at all. So when I got there, the battalion chief was in the smoke. We pulled up the command van, and we thought we were in a good location. And command van's difficult to get.
You're 5 blocks away.
We never
saw.
You
were doomed.
We were across the parking lot and never saw the building until it. Right?
Yeah. It was.
That's part of it too.
That was fate, man. Right there. That was.
Yeah, I wouldn't have changed anything.
Right?
No, we couldn't have changed it. We couldn't have. We were boxed in. But I guess the other thing is, if you're not, I'm going to say this, Nick. You may disagree with me, but if you're not in a good position, I like what Nick says. Drive around and pick a good spot. If you're not in a good spot, and it's going to compromise what you think you can do, move your spot. Have your.
The problem is sometimes you can't.
Sometimes you can't.
And what I would do is I would send my partner forward, and I'd say, go forward and tell me what the hell we got to be doing next. And so he would come back, and like if it's a big apartment complex, for example, and then this happened to me. And it's like, I can't make sense of the building because I can't see it. It's too far away and there's too much fire and smoke. So he comes back and he says, Nick, look at the building to the left of you. And it's laid out exactly the same. And this is what was. So he could give me a reference where I could wrap my head around it. There was another time where we didn't do much wildland here. It just didn't happen very often. I mean, it's Phoenix. It's a desert. We don't have a lot of oil-rich growth coming out of the ground. But we had a fire way north of the Carefree Highway, and they set the command van up.
Yeah.
And they had probably about 50 or 60 acres burning, so it was a deal. And I remember it was burning towards us. And there was an airplane overhead from the Bureau of Land Management. And they said, we expect burnover in the next 3 to 5 minutes, something to that effect. And I asked somebody in the support officer, I said, what the hell is burnover? He says, it's going to burn over the road. I said, that we're parked on? And he says, yeah. So Bev drove the command van. I said, just start driving. I'll tell you when to stop. And like the pop out was still out, and she, this thing's rocking with we're all gonna die. But I mean, we had to move the command post because otherwise we were gonna have burnover.
I had early on, and now maybe you can get a sense of what the building looks like. But I learned from the Southwest Freeway because I thought that was one structure, and it ended up being that add-on that wasn't connected to.
Yeah, there's not 4 walls, there's 7.
Yeah. So I would have Sid Norwood. He would get out when we first arrived, and he would take a clipboard and he would do a quick walk around, make sure he didn't talk to anybody, right? Mm-hmm. Don't stop. This is something that he did for me because I had trouble getting a feel for the building. And he would come back, he goes, this is what you got. And he'd show me a layout of the building. It was crude, but it made sense, right? It's like, oh, okay, now I understand what we got. So that helped me.
You know, I think what the solution is today are drones. Yeah. Is if you got it, man, I used helicopters all the time. Media helicopter. I prefer them over the cops because the media had better cameras.
Yeah, they did.
So, and we could pull their signal off in our command post. So that was a deal. And they had a radio, so you could talk to them. So a lot of times we would get intel that way and it was much better, and you can make better decisions about, okay, especially like in more complicated incident action planning scenarios where you had like bigger buildings that were more complex, and you make better sense out of what's going on. And I think today with drones, and you see more and more fire departments, I mean, if I was doing a command post, it'd be a goddamn drone in the roof of the thing. And you would use, and in fact, you could tether it almost. It doesn't have to be able to fly everywhere. You just need an aerial view of the building you're in front of. So, I mean, there's different ways to deal with a bad view.
We just put one in service in our battalion vehicle. It's a tethered drone, so it flies under 200 feet. So you don't need a license for it. It's fixed, and you can run it for 24 hours, and it could still be up.
Do you got a trained pilot?
No, I mean,
you don't need one.
Yeah, we don't need, because it's tethered, and it's 190 feet is all it goes up. So you don't need the license to do it.
So you get the drone up, and then you can manipulate the camera, so you can zoom and do this and that.
And there's a thermal imager on there and everything else. So it's cool. So we haven't used it yet. We just put it in service last week.
See, I did like interior. You can use a drone interior, and so if you have like a drone, you could have somebody fly it into dangerous situations, like the cop robot almost. We'll send the robot in. Well, the drone does the same thing for us. So
the other thing I'd say about command post location, at least for my area, is don't be afraid to off-road. I don't like fire apparatus or ladder trucks, anything off the road, but if you've got to park in someone's yard a little bit, only about 20% of the time do they complain. And thankfully, we have a great public works department. They'll go out and put sod down and patch the hole if we put ruts in somebody's yard. But we don't hesitate to pull a chief's vehicle off into somebody's yard so we can be out of the way and then get a good view of the scene.
You know, I would that was as a BC, you learn that. Yeah. Sometimes I have to get off the street and drive over sidewalks and things.
In residential neighborhoods, we would back into the driveway across the street.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah. No, man, that's a good that's a good timeless tactical truth. There's the command post. Most of the time, I bet 75% of the time you had a very good view. You didn't need to move it, and you could kind of tell the changing conditions. And so, you know, and that's really, it's a lot more efficient when the IC has visual factor feedback, because you know immediately the status of your attack and what's going on.
All right. Let's wrap it up. Thanks, guys.
Kumbaya.
Excellent, Vance.
Yeah.
This is I like it when it's more like this.
Yes, it's
free
enjoyable.
Yeah. I really think that we get some tanks, and we could do this inside the tanks.
Can we share tanks? Can we all?
Not in the beginning. I think we have to become
spooning in the tank.
No, not yet.
I'm worried about Nick and his Dookie. He's saying stuff about Dookies.
Yeah. Nick had in a body of water before, because that question came out too fast.
I was highly relaxed when it happened.
We all have.
Hey, listen.
I think we all have.
I get my big head from my mama.
Thanks for listening to B Shifter.
Cut that part out.